It's time for another episode of Bedlam Buds, that time of the week, multiple times of the week, where we get together, one OU fan, that's me, my name is Ryan, Boomer Sooner, and one OSU fan.
That's me, Jeremy Cook. Go Pokes.
We talk about the weekend that was, the week that will be, and sports beyond football. And if it's okay, given that OSU went to Tucson, didn't cover the over, and didn't really come close to Arizona, we'll start with OU this week, if that's okay.
That is perfectly fine.
It's a big week. It's OU Texas week. It is beat Texas week. It is horns down week for sure, and it comes off a 44-0 win for the Sooners against Kent State. I had a lot of folks in my TikTok and Instagrams talk about how great Oklahoma looked. I'm gonna be a Debbie Downer, Jeremy. I didn't think we looked all that great. The defense is fine. Anytime you get a clean sheet, that's it's mystical and magical. The defense looks amazing. I think it's probably a top 5 defense in the country. You're not going to convince me that they're better than Ohio State. But
That's fair.
top 5, I think, easily top 5 at this point, and probably best in the SEC, bar none. Now, with that said, I expect that they would have held Kent State to 0 or 3. They only scored 10 or 14 against Florida State and Texas Tech, I believe it was. But the offense, they only scored 44 with Michael Hawkins Jr. And it's not just about points. There is an eye test to be had. And I didn't really feel like I saw the progress that I wanted to see out of Michael Hawkins Jr. There was a lot of holding the ball too long. There was a lot of throwing off the back foot or throwing it away in haste. The first touchdown was a heave. It was Bon Jovi living on a prayer. Throw it up and hope for the best. And that first pass to Keontae Lewis, and goodness knows that was a very, very scary injury. Now, I'm not going to blame that on Hawkins, but that ball was vastly overthrown. It wasn't the progress I was hoping to see with as an acclaimed offensive coordinator as Ben Arbuckle is. And a lot of folks said in the TikToks and Instagrams that I posted and participated in this weekend, well, we're just not showing all the plays. Jeremy, I don't believe that's a thing. I really don't. You have to practice the plays. Why would you ever not work on some things in a game? It just, and I say all this with a little bit of concern toward Texas. And if the Longhorns didn't crap the bed themselves against Florida in Gainesville, I'd be a little more concerned. Frankly, I'm not. I think the Sooners win this week with Hawkins or with Mateer. I'd feel a lot better, though, with Mateer. Did you get a chance to watch any of the Sooners game?
Yeah, I actually got to watch a little bit of OU and also a little bit of Texas, and I agree with you. I think that OU is going to win that game this weekend. And now, what we have to remember in defense of Hawkins is that he's not the number one. There's a reason they went out and got Mateer. There's a reason why that happened, and Mateer's been getting the number one snaps until recently. So Hawkins hasn't had, they try to divide it out as much as possible, but we all know the NCAA limits the amount of practice time you can have. So they're limited on how much they can run with the 2s, 3s, 4s. So this was his first opportunity. And I would imagine that they probably kept it a little vanilla for him this past week against Kent State, because you're going to win. And you also don't want to break his confidence. You don't want to try and ask him to do too much to where, it could ruin his mental attitude for the next couple of weeks, certainly with this being the big Red River Rivalry coming up. And, that's a very, very important game. So, that's just kind of in defense. However, the realistic thing is there was some question marks on offense. There was some questionable decisions by the quarterback, by Hawkins, and it was just a case where, OU clearly was the better team, and they could get away with some of those mistakes. Against Texas or an Alabama, somebody like that, you might not be able to get away with it.
The good news is that the Oklahoma defense is elite. I may have said it before. At some point I've said it, top 5. This is a defense that's in line with your Ohio States. I don't think it's necessarily better than the Buckeyes, but I think it is as good a defense as there is in the country, and that's the saving grace. If you recall, for those Sooners who recall 2000, the offense had a significant drop off toward the end of the year. It was a It was a whiz bang offense in 1999 and in 2000, but the Josh Heupel offense, it took a nosedive in the second half of 2000, and the Sooners were struggling to score. It was the defense that saved the day, and I think it may be the defense that takes us as far as we could possibly go. And one of the things that I heard, and I don't know if it's true or not, was that the coaches didn't want Hawkins to depend overly on his legs. And my thought is, would you ask Kyle Schwarber not to hit home runs? Would you ask LeBron not to go to the hole, or better yet, Michael Jordan or Kobe? This is Michael Hawkins' talent. Would you ask Kenny G not to play the saxophone? This is what he does. Let him run. Maybe the thought was, well, you don't want to get Hawkins hurt. Now you're down to Whit Newbauer, and but against Texas, you're going to have to let him run. This is the thing that he does. And Ben Arbuckle, I have to say, discouraged or concerned. I just don't know how much work was put into Hawkins. Like you said, there's limited practice time, but I don't go in with the highest confidence of the Sooners offense with Michael Hawkins Jr. at the helm. With Mateer, sure, but even then, is his hand, is his wrist, is his thumb back to 100%? I'm almost certain that on Tuesday, we're recording this on Monday, we're going to hear that it's the Michael Hawkins Jr. show against Texas. And you know what? There'll be no bigger Hawk fan than myself come Saturday, because Oklahoma has to get this win. The Sooners are playing a murderer's row of SEC teams down the line. I mean, you're going to Columbia. You're going to play a very good, probably a better Mississippi team this year than even last year when they had Jackson Dart. You're going to have to play LSU and Alabama and Missouri. Missouri's defense is ranked almost as highly as OU's. I'm telling you,
Missouri's
the offense.
defense is number 1 in yards allowed, meaning they have the lowest amount of yards given up.
So the offense is going to have to become a priority. So there were a lot of fans who said we just didn't see the playbook. Well, we better see it this week. What in
That
the world? What are we doing here? I am not a fan of holding back the playbook. I don't believe that's done. I believe that is silly. But
Well, okay, now let me kinda defend that other side, right? Let me play devil's advocate here. We know Michael Hawkins can run. We know he can hit the corner. We know he can get out of the pocket, right? So they didn't wanna work on that this past week. They wanted to work on his passing game, because that passing game is what's gonna open up the run for the Sooners this coming weekend. And so I don't think they were holding anything back per se, but I think they were limiting the amount of plays so that he could master those ones that you're going to have to use on Saturday. Whereas he still has that natural ability. He's always going to be able to break the pocket. He's always going to be able to scramble and run. Now, those hitting those passes, that's what they needed to work on this Saturday. And I kind of think that's the approach they took. Almost a practice.
I could, you know what? I hope you're correct, and what you say makes a ton of sense. In that case, they didn't hold back the playbook. I mean, we'll see come Saturday, but with what Texas did, crap in the bed, if you will, against Florida, just super underwhelming. Arch Manning has been underwhelming. Texas as the whole has been underwhelming, and a third loss. Oh my goodness, that could send them into a free fall.
That
I
would
hope
be
it happens.
tragic.
Yeah, that would be tragic. So, speaking of tragic, not really tragic in the big scheme of things, but let's talk about the Cowboys, because both you and I thought OSU had a chance to win in Tucson. But that was quickly not the case. And it was the Arizona offense that really got them out to a fast start en route to a 41-13 win. I watched quite a bit of it, and I just saw it was a short passing game, and the receivers getting yak yards after catch, and they were just able to move up and down the field with ease. The defense still a struggle.
Now, here's ironically, or maybe not, maybe ironically is not the right word, but Oklahoma State actually gave up less yards in a game against Arizona than any of the previous games. Literally, we're averaging 530 some odd yards given up a game, and we're 100 less than that. About 428 is what it was. Now, Oklahoma State themselves only got 158 yards, so you're not going to win a ball game doing that. Certainly, when the other team has 3 to 4 times the amount of yards. And that's what's been the problem all year on the defensive side. The rush will get some pressure, and then just a short pass, a 5-yard, a wheel route, bubble screen, those types are suddenly a 50-yard play. In the second half, Oklahoma State's defense held them much closer, except for about 3 big plays. And trying to be the eternal optimist, Oklahoma State won the fourth quarter 7-3. Okay. So, they never quit. Once again, you hate to hang your hat on this, and you hate to, certainly at this college level where these are pros now. These guys are getting paid money to play ball. So they're professionals. For professionals, you keep having to say, I hating to say, I should say, that at least they didn't quit, but at least they didn't quit. I mean, it's a bad season right now, and even toward the end of the game, those guys were laying it out there. They were trying their best. They were trying to be in the right positions. They were doing everything they could. It's just, unfortunately, I mean, I can't sugarcoat it. They're just not that good right now. And I mean, it's going to take, the new defensive coordinator can't fix everything in a week. I mean, these guys have been with Grantham for months now and learning what he wanted. And now we're trying to adjust. And in 1 week, you can't do that, right? Just like with Michael Hawkins, you can't open the whole playbook for him in 1 week when he's not had that experience. Same thing with the defense. And Oklahoma State lost several safeties into the portal. And so they're playing some brand new guys. They're playing some young guys that are basically almost a tryout. And just to see who's going to lay it on the line for that OSU logo. And again, I hate to dwell on what we know, but unfortunately, what we know is at least they didn't quit, and they were playing to the very end. That is a good sign to me that they believe in what they're doing. They believe in the coaches. They know that they're not good, but they're trying to do better. But again, as weird as it sounds, Saturday was actually a better game for the defense. Certainly in the second half, if they hadn't given up, I think it was two over 50-yard touchdown passes, or something like that. And that's not going to win you any ball game. And coming up this weekend, we're a 14-point home dog to Houston. And I mean, Houston is 4-1. I thought, I originally at the beginning of the year, I had Houston as a win. I had Cincinnati as a win because these are home games against, whoa. Now we're going to have to back that up a little bit.
I you know, I think this might be a win for OSU. It's not that it's I just don't feel it as a for sure situation. Something you mentioned though, and this is another discussion that I've had on some of my Ryan is that dude channels on Instagram and TikTok, but you talked about it can't turn around in 1 week. I want to point out a program that was terrible, and they did turn it around in 1 week, and that's UCLA. They handed the reins to Jerry Neuheisel, and first week calling plays, they went out and put up 42 on Penn State and won. Doesn't explain the defense, but 1 week.
Well, but let's see how they do the rest of the year.
Right,
I think
but for sure.
you got that new manager bump. We talk about that in soccer. They got that new manager bump. You got that new coach. And then you also had a Penn State team that was hungover from Oregon. Penn State started out with absolute garbage. They looked horrible. And then in the second half, they started that comeback when they started settling back into things. And that's why I'm not sold on UCLA. I still think that
Oh,
they're a
I mean,
dumpster fire.
they're 1-4.
Right.
There's not much to sell you on except the power of you have to do something different to get something different.
Right, and power of belief is a real thing, and if they start thinking they can win, let's face it, their schedule's not that tough. They could win several more ball games, but I wanna see it before I really buy into the new Heisel saving UCLA trip.
Well, it's, and not that I'm saying that, but I do remember when Bob Stoops came to Norman and brought Mike Leach with him, and this credit to Mike Leach. That offense was drastically different. We went from sheer incompetence under John Blake, and that's what it was, to a wonderful offense that looked like folks knew what they were supposed to do, and it was just this is not rocket science, this is football still, and that's why I'm like, "Guys, I'm a little down on Ben Arbuckle, I'm a little down on the Sooners offense." I'm like, "I'm just not seeing that much that is creative or is quite 44 points, that's fine. This was Kent State. That translates to about 15 against Texas."
Well, Texas, honestly, their defense is their strength right now. So I mean, it very well could be an interesting matchup. What time's that kick off?
2:30. I
Okay,
will
so
be I will be in Tulsa. We're going to watch The Outsiders next weekend, and so I will be in a car watching with headphones on, and I will try to keep my language as clean as possible.
okay, well, I won't text updates because our game kicks off at 11, so I'll be able to worst case the whole second half. So I'm curious after Oklahoma State upsets Houston and gets that big win number one in conference play.
It's beat Texas all the way around next weekend. Cowboys over Houston,
Yeah.
Sooners over Texas. Did you get to watch much baseball this weekend at all?
I not a lot. I kind of focused on football a little bit. Watching as much of the college game as I could. Since Oklahoma State was away, I had the ability to do that. Um, Now I do know that Toronto. Wow. I mean, I've caught bits and pieces, but Toronto, my
Yeah.
goodness, what's happening there?
Right.
I mean, my goodness.
I think it's they're taking out their political angst all over the United States. It
Well,
is a booty organization, and they're going to whip some tail. They're gonna whip some Yankee tail. It's the Yankee Doodle Dandy
I
series.
think they're going to sweep out.
Uh, at this point, anytime you get a 2-0 lead, that's kinda what you think, and the Dodgers-Phillies was a grind. I expect the Phillies to win tonight and tie that series 1-1. That should be a series that goes to 5, even though, as I said in a previous, discussion, I think the Dodgers I don't know how they're gonna get beaten. Detroit, what's odd is they won the first game and then they lost the Scooble game. It's gonna be a nip and tuck series, and then the Brewers get out to a 9-0 lead on the Cubs, which went exactly like we said it would.
Absolutely did. Now the Mariners Tigers, what's interesting to me is that it was a 3-2, 3-2. Both those games were right there. And so that's the closest one. That's the nip and tuck. Dodgers Phillies will be close. I think the Brewers are going to just continue to do what we think they're going to do. Again, I predict Toronto to sweep out. I've been wrong thus far a lot on the baseball, but I think I'm feeling pretty confident with that. The Mariners Tigers, man, I came in confident with the Mariners, but the way the Tigers pitching has really picked it up, um,
Mhm.
I I'm not convinced anymore.
Well, they were the best team in baseball for much of the year, and then they had that fall off. Maybe they have gotten their mojo back.
Well, yeah, that's entirely possible. That's entirely possible. And they were more of an offensive juggernaut a lot throughout the season. They put up a lot of run. Their bats work. So them being held to three but still winning, that should scare the rest of baseball. I mean, because if both pieces are firing, the Tigers easily could win it.
Right. I listened to some of the Oklahoma City Thunder game yesterday. I've got my Thunder cap over here, Thunder up.
Okay.
Um, Preseason game number 1. I'm blurry all of a sudden. I don't know what's up with that. This camera's awful.
You're blurry on my end.
Yeah. Well, I either that or the old man eyesight. Yeah, you're seeing stuff in real time, folks. Okay, can we just get this to work, please? Um,
That's right.
this is what
Go
it is.
ahead. Well, we can fix
We'll
it in
just keep
post.
going. Yeah, we'll fix it in post, or maybe we won't fix it in post. We'll just roll with it. What's wrong with your eyesight? Are you seeing this blurry? That's you.
Yes.
But the Thunder, they had no problem with Charlotte. It's the preseason. It's the first game of preseason. But just a quick funny story because for game 7, we went, Jeremy, this summer, my wife, my stepdaughter, and myself, we went overseas for this program called the Oklahoma Ambassadors of Music. Essentially, high school choir students from across the state led by Greg and Diane Johnson. We know them both. Greg was our choir director back in the day. We traveled to England, we traveled to France, to Germany, to Austria, to Switzerland, to sing in chapels and churches and in town squares all across Europe.
Okay, I'm already jealous. Stop. Dang.
It was phenomenal, phenomenal, even though there were a few 2 and 3 hour wake up calls. But that's life on the road. But we were supposed to be back for game 7 and Thunder game 7, and I'm trying to keep up with the Oklahoma City Thunder. We all were over there, but it would require you to either get up very early in the morning or miss some sleep, which we didn't get much of at all. But for Game 7, we were supposed to already been back home, but because the FAA decided that there weren't enough air traffic controllers at Newark Airport, we didn't get to fly home. So we were stuck in New York City, actually East Rutherford, New Jersey, for 2 days. Christy, Olivia, and I, we went into New York City. They went to go see a Broadway show. I went to a bar because this is Game 7. I'm not missing Game 7 for anything. This place is packed. It's called Yard House. It's in Midtown Manhattan. Packed. And nobody there is really that interested. I saw maybe a couple of people who looked like they were paying attention to the game. This is 7:30, and the game's already in the middle of the first quarter. But I'm looking around just fervently. I'm not, hooping and hollering too much, but I'm clearly interested. And you think people say, or New York City has the reputation of not being such a friendly place, except that it's actually one of the most friendly places on the planet. The bartender saw me, said, so we don't really have any seats, but I can tell you're interested in the game. Do you have a dog in this fight? And I said, yeah, I'm from Oklahoma City. He got me a stool, poured me a beer, set me in a corner, said, you're going to have to stay out of the way. The waitresses need to come through here, but there's your seat. Just raise your hand whenever you need another one. I'll take care of you for as long as you're here. I'm like, that was an amazing core memory for me of Oklahoma City's first Game 7 in the finals, and I am excited like heck for them to get back out on the floor and get this season started. First game is October 21st, and that'll be on K4 here in Oklahoma City and KJRH in Tulsa.
Well, my brother got to shoot their media day, and he said that they had this same attitude, that they still had that underdog attitude. They weren't walking around, flashing their rings and praising the trophy. They were there, they were having a good time. They were still loose and being that same fun Oklahoma City team that we're used to. But he said that you could see that there was business, that they knew that, they don't automatically win that trophy again, that it's hard to repeat. And he said you could just tell by their attitudes and what they were saying and how they were behaving that they're fully invested back in this, and they know what it's going to take to try and repeat. And for such a young team being led by such young players, my goodness, that's refreshing. I'm looking forward to this season.
It's impossible not to love this team. Not saying that because I live in Oklahoma City or that we're both in Oklahoma. It just is impossible not to love these guys. And I remember when the Houston Rockets won their second championship and Rudy Tomjanovich said, never underestimate the heart of a champion. Something that Houston did there. They reunited Phi Slamma Jamma. They brought Clyde Drexler in to pair up with Hakeem, and they went on that run. I predict Russell Westbrook isn't signed with anybody. I predict he plays for the Thunder this year. He'll be a sixth man, and their mission will be to win one for Russ. That will give them their raison d'etre, if you will, to pull in a little French.
Okay, but
And
who's off the roster then?
I have no idea. I don't know. I'm not a GM. Just add some. I don't know.
Based in reality, I mean they have a full roster. I mean all the way through.
No idea. No idea. So yeah,
You know what? He'll make it happen. Presty will make that happen.
that's right. He's the magic man.
Yeah,
Anyway,
absolutely.
not the most, we've had blurry video, I'm making all sorts of crazy claims. It's just another day in the Bedlam Buds world.
Absolutely. This is
Alright,
this is why this is the best.
we'll talk later this week as we, get through some more baseball playoffs. By the way, hockey starts tomorrow night.
Oh,
A quick Stanley Cup champion pick?
no. Let me next episode. Let me do a little research next episode, and I'll come back and I'll give you the winner.
Okay, you do that. Right now, I'm leaning toward, I have no idea. I would say the Florida Panthers again, but I don't really know anything about hockey, so I
I'd
would
say the
just
Blues. If right
Oh.
right now, I'd say the Blues. But let me do some research, and I'll come back next week and I'll tell you.
All right, fantastic. For Jeremy, I'm Ryan. This is another episode of Bedlam Buds. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow the channel if you got a question that you would like us to answer, especially maybe it doesn't have anything to do with football. Maybe it has to do with OSU wrestling. Maybe it has to do with men's or women's basketball. We'll be talking about other sports. What are you interested in? Put it in the comments below. Even if you disagree, we love you anyway. And until next time, I'm Ryan. That's Jeremy for Bedlam Buds. We'll see ya.
Yeah.